Disney Plus launched to much fanfare last year, and one of their films that really stood out to me was Lady and the Tramp. And of course, it's a live action remake. It's super fun, and I am very pleased to have the composer of this film, Joseph Trapanese, on Composer Talks with White Bear PR. Welcome, Joe.
Hey, thank you for having me, Chandler.
Yeah, thanks for being here. Obviously, we've known each other for a super long time, so it's funny to kind of be in like a professional interview setting, but we'll
Definitely.
make it work. You interviewed me actually on that Spitfire video.
Yeah, that was really fun. I never done that. I have never done that before or since. So hopefully, one day we'll do it again. That was fun.
Yeah, absolutely. So Joseph, or as we commonly call him, Joe, Joseph Trapanese, he's best known for his sleek score work on blockbuster films like Tron Legacy, Straight Outta Compton, The Greatest Showman, Oblivion, Only the Brave, Arctic, Earth to Echo. I can go on and on. Divergent series, Raid series. There's just so much amazing work that you've done. But we're here to talk about Lady and the Tramp primarily because it's such a sweet score. It is a beautiful piece of work. I was at the recording session at Fox, and I thought it was just, or Sony, and it was stunning. It was so beautiful. So you started talking about Lady and the Tramp with the director Charlie Bean before the film was shot, or before there was a script, I believe. So how did that collaboration come about, and how was those early talks?
Something that was really important to me, both me and Charlie from the very beginning. And, Charlie and I have known each other, I think just about as long as you and I have known each other. So a long time. Is, we wanted to make sure we were authentic. Hollywood has a tradition of, just grabbing little bits and pieces and throwing together a score or musical ideas, out of little ideas, which, can work really well. But we wanted to make sure that our score and the music of our film, especially because we jokingly say that Lady and the Tramp is one song short of a musical. If there was one or two more songs in it, we might consider it a musical. There's so many great songs. So music obviously is a big character in the film, and so we wanted to start early, and not only early so that the music can be part of the film story-wise, but also so that it could be authentic to the time period, authentic to the culture that we were presenting. It takes place in roughly, between 1910 and 1915. And something that we spoke about early on is, how music at that time was very much alive. At that point, to own a record player was about as rare as owning a car. Record players were hard to find, and hard to come by. So, if you were going to have music in the home, you had to have a piano, you had to hear live music. And so we talked about the presence of music in the film, but also, what was the popular music at the time? What were people listening to? So that led us to early jazz, Louis Armstrong. The film takes place, we shot in Savannah, Georgia. So there's very much a Southern feel to the movie. So, the music of New Orleans became a very strong part of the film. Black American music, was really important. And it was really critical for me as someone who has, limited training in that. I'm more classically oriented. It was really important that we take the time and energy to really dive into that music. So I feel like what we presented in the film is something really special, really a true picture of music at that time.
Beautiful. And also, the film, of course, is called Lady and the Tramp. So there is two very distinct characters who are dogs, Lady and Tramp. How was your approach to scoring these two characters, and how did their themes differ?
It was a lot of fun to think about exactly that, the counterpoint between these two characters. So Tramp lives on the street, he's free, he could do whatever he wants, he's super happy. So his music comes more from improvised forms of music, like jazz. Whereas Lady, being upper middle class, more formal, more classical, that was more from exactly that, the classical music of the time. And because there's such an American feel to the movie, I definitely owe a lot to Aaron Copland and Americana for that sort of influence. But what was really fun about this movie is that as the movie goes on, these characters get to know each other better and start to become a couple. So, musically, how do we portray that? How does the music start rubbing off on each other? And so one of the most obvious ways we did that is when you hear, the orchestra playing, but obviously with the jazz influences, with the band playing. But then what was also really fun was there's a cue called, I think it's Getting on the Boat, where lady has to scheme her way onto this riverboat, and it's the first time we hear it's just the band, it's just the Lady and the Tramp band. So it's a sound that we associate with Tramp, but it's playing Lady's theme. So she's sort of taking on the character of Tramp. So we had a lot of fun opportunities to get really creative with how we scored the picture. To me, to me, I think it's kind of a mantra for me. Like I think scoring can be just that, just underscore. But I think it's a missed opportunity when you just use music as an underscore. How great is it when music can be a real part of the storytelling process?
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree. And was it important to you to stay true to the era, or were you able to kind of incorporate any sort of modern scoring elements or whatnot? Did you feel kind of beholden to that time period?
I didn't feel locked in. We definitely felt it was important to feel of the era. I think that was one thing that we feel was really interesting about the original movie. The original film takes place in the same approximate time period, the teens. But the music is very of the time the film was made. So the music is all very 50s. It's like very, you hear like, those star musicians of the 50s, which is great and what gives the movie a real signature. But we also wanted to, because we were really going all in on the period nature of the film, we did want to bring the score and bring the musical ideas back to that era to really have the musical presence be there. At the same time, though, you're right, we didn't want to let that lock us in. So there are numerous, synth appearances, virtual instruments happening that, that was an important thing when we went into, you know, the scoring process was almost twofold. There was the music before we started editing the film, which was all kind of diving into the more Black American, New Orleans, that flavor of music, but also there was the when we got into editorial and started really scoring the film, underscoring the film, we said, yeah, let's not use that as a box, let's make sure to find places to push against it. So there are definitely times where you'll hear much more modern orchestration, much more modern sounds.
Now, you mentioned New Orleans. Did that city and that culture really, have an influence on you? And were you able to go there and kind of experience the music itself?
That was really important to us to make that trip. We went down to New Orleans with the help of our arranger for those sessions, Sarah Morrow. She helped us put together this all-star band. For instance, Lucien Barberin on trombone, who unfortunately passed away recently, but he is like the godfather of that tailgate style of trombone playing. I guess not the godfather, but almost like the godfather of current practice. Obviously it's a tradition that's over 100 years old now, but he was kind of the standard bearer for it at the time. And we would, the score would be nothing without Nicholas Payton on trumpet, legendary trumpet player who his talents are so broad that he could, 1 second sound like Miles Davis, another second sound like Louis Armstrong, and the next second sound like himself. He has his own incredible voice, and he's an incredible musician. So those are only two examples of this incredible band that was put together. Steve Pistorius on piano, Herlin, I'm trying to remember his last name, Herlin on drums. These those of you who are into that music will know all these people. And I think it was important for us to really find musicians who were essentially we're barely, these instruments were put into their hands when they could barely hold them up. These are musicians who grew up in New Orleans, who understand that music more deeply than anyone who could be taught that music, in a university or something. These are people who this is a real this goes to their blood. So I think and that was one of the really interesting things we did there was, for one of the sessions I said, look, here's the music for he's a Tramp, the classic song from the original film. But I said, hey, can we pretend that this was a 1910 original song, and we're going to play it like that? Like if we're in 1910, we're playing it in that style, and this was an original hit song from that time. And it was the coolest afternoon I've had in the studio in a long time, because these musicians really embody that and brought it to life in a way that I could never imagine. So, that was just such a tremendous influence to everything else we did on the film. And I feel just, so grateful to have that authenticity, to have that opportunity to really dive into that culture and learn from it and gain from it, and hopefully, credit it and put a spotlight on it for people.
Beautiful. And you also made a little cameo in the film. Can you talk about?
No, no, I will not talk about. That was really unplanned. Although, I have to say it was a real learning experience for me, because I've been on set before. I've gone to set. I've done stuff on set in other films, but something like Greatest Showman, I had that tremendous opportunity to be on set and help with that for a few instances. But for Lady and the Tramp, I really had to like run that riverboat band. If you could recall the film, there's the riverboat band, and had to, those were all great musicians too in their own right. That was like the best of the best local musicians in Savannah, so they could hold their own next to our New Orleans band as well. But they had to learn the music that we recorded in New Orleans and play it. And so my plan was to just be off camera, directing them, giving feedback. And for one of the days, that's what it was. But on another day, one of the musicians had a family emergency, had to leave set. And so, our incredible producer, Brigham Taylor, pulled up the golf cart and said, "Joe, hop in." It was a very like Starsky and Hutch moment, and drove me to drove me to makeup and costuming, and got me into the full regalia, and put a banjo in my hands, and I was in the band. And in fact, I regret I didn't do that from day one, because it was very different being right there with the band and being able to direct them in between every take, and say, "Hey, let's do this better. I'm going to stand up here. Let's do that." So it was a good lesson for me that said, what, as much as I hate being on camera, next time I have this opportunity, I'm just going to have to bite the bullet and do it from day one. So
That's
it was
awesome.
great.
Well, now you are in the Parthenon of Alexander Desplat and Michael Giacchino and John Lund, who have all made appearances in their projects.
Yeah, I mean, it was really incredible to see John Williams in the new Star Wars movie. I didn't think I'd
That's
ever
right,
see that,
yes.
but wasn't that great? Wasn't that? I was just remember sitting in the theater going, "Oh my goodness, they got him on camera!" So great.
Now, you have collaborated with a lot of incredible artists in your career, from M83, Mike Shinoda from Linkin Park, Dr. Dre, and I can go on. But I want to know, what do you take away from that collaborative process, and how is it different than working solo?
That's a great thing to talk about, actually, in the context of Lady and the Tramp, for instance. I think that all, we are, to me, musically, we are nothing if not authentic, and I know that my worldview is very narrow. I am a trained classical musician, quote unquote. I've played in jazz bands. I've played in Latin bands. I've been exposed to a lot of music. I've written electronic music since I was 13. Playing with synthesizers. So I do have a broad range of music under my belt. But at the same time, there's so many incredible musicians, and there's so much incredible talent and cultures and ideas making music out there, that I find myself so lucky to have worked with so many musicians. And I think that, it's a testament to my curiosity and my openness, that these collaborations have worked well, gosh, yeah, it's really humbling to think about how many incredible artists I've had the fortune to work with. I think it's, there have been moments in my career where, people have told me, "Hey, you're really a film composer. You should just work on your own now and develop your own voice," which I feel that, first of all, I do have my own voice. I've been developing it ever since I picked up a pencil and started writing music. But at the same time, I'd be remiss not to work with a great musician when given the opportunity, because, hopefully I'll be making music well into, my old age. And even then, I'd love to work with and collaborate with musicians, because there's always so much to learn and so much more ways to grow and understand. So I feel so fortunate that in these collaborations, some of them, they come to me and say, "Joe, you're the guy who helps artists score." And of course, that's great. And that's a wonderful thing to be known for. But, I'll nod my head and say, "Sure, I'll help them score." But in the back of my head, I'm always saying, what can I learn from that artist? There's so many great things that I can learn from a Dr. Dre or a Daft Punk or an M83 that just I wasn't exposed to when I in my musical upbringing, and so much the same with Lady and the Tramp. Almost, going to so I had never been to New Orleans. My knowledge of early, Louis Armstrong, that kind of hot five, hot seven, that early, quote unquote, early jazz, is really lacking. My knowledge of jazz, I used to play in like full on jazz bands, which is obviously more Sinatra, more, late jazz, more, more 50s, 60s, 70s. So, that's where my knowledge was. So to be able to tap into, another artist who's bringing so much to the table is just so lucky, so fortunate.
Yeah, entirely. Now you mentioned that have been working with all these different genres, whether it's jazz or electronics or orchestral. Is there a style of music that you have yet to explore or that you would love to?
Oh gosh, yeah, so much. I think, I tapped this service. I feel it, one of the things that how do I put this? Let's see, like when I went to Manhattan School of Music, they have a really great curriculum where your first 2 years at the school, you kind of learn the broad history of Western music, which is kind of defined as like, chant, plain chant from like 900s and the thousands, 1100, all the way through modern, orchestral music, Stravinsky, Steve Reich, Philip Glass, et cetera, et cetera, modern, quote unquote, modern contemporary music. And I know there's a lot more, it's infinite, but, and they have this whole curriculum design where you're also studying liberal arts at that time, you're studying the theory of that time. And some of the most eye-opening experience for me was that first semester where we were studying, quote unquote, early music. And that's basically chant, early polyphonic music all the way through Bach. And so there was a film I did 4 years ago called Shimmer Lake, where it's a Netflix movie, and it's still up there. You should check it out if you haven't. Where I used like viola da gambas and kind of these early music instruments to create this weird atmosphere for like this odd Midwestern town. And so I have a great love for early, quote unquote, classical music, kind of like the Lulis, the Guillaume Dufay's, like this kind of early vocal and early instrumental music, all the way up to like Telemann and Vivaldi. And I'm keeping my eye out for that project that'll allow me to have a viola da gamba orchestra, and like with lutes and theorbos and stuff. And I think it's a really incredible sound that I hope to dig into one day.
Cool. And last question, what is on your playlist these days? What are you
Oh,
listening
that
to?
is a great question. So just the other day, I was doing a deep dive into Morricone, some very obscure Morricone, because there's so many great scores he did. Since I'm at my laptop, I'm going to look at Spotify because it's so varied. It goes day to day. If you looked at my play history, I'd look like a maniac. One thing that was really fun for me, I actually watched the Last Dance documentary, which everyone is watching now. So I know I'm late to the curve here, but that soundtrack. So there's a playlist in Spotify. It's all the music I grew up with. I talk about in interviews how I grew up with hip hop, and so to have a playlist with Coolio, Run DMC, Wu-Tang, Notorious B.I.G., but then to also like the Chicago Bulls theme song, like when I was growing up, the Chicago Bulls were everything. So, that was that's been an incredible playlist I've been listening to like quite a bit lately. And then I'm working on a film with a lot of Hawaiian and Polynesian influences. So I've been listening to quite a bit of that culture of music. And that culture is very broad because you go from, super traditional music of that culture, but then to also, pop music out of that culture. So yeah, I'm looking at my recently played in Spotify right now, and you'd think I was a maniac. It's everything from John Carpenter and Nine Inch Nails to the Broadway recording of Cabaret, Mussorgsky's Pictures at an Exhibition, the Barber Violin Concerto, it's all over. But, that's kind of the nature of what I do. We need to be, the important thing is storytelling. And so you need to be able to pull from any sort of tradition and culture and and musical history essentially to be able to tell that story. So that's one of the most exciting things about my job.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for taking your time. For those of you who don't have Disney Plus yet, what are you waiting on? Because go get it and watch Lady and the Tramp, the live action remake. It's really sweet, beautiful family film, but also fun. I downloaded it onto my iPad and watched it on a plane when we used to fly on planes, and it was a great little movie to watch. But anyways, thanks again, Joe. I really appreciate you taking the time.
Great being here with you, Chandler. Thank you for having me.